Welcome. I'm excited for you to join us on another conversation with Pam Hosel. And today I have two rock stars here with me that you are going to love. So I want to introduce them. First, Jake Allen is, I would call you the co-founder, right? Or CEO of Breakthrough Fit, which is a personal training and small group training facility that exists to adapt to individuals' lifestyles through group, in-person, and virtual training options. More importantly, Breakthrough Fit is really committed to equal access to health and wellness for the special needs community through their adaptive and personalized Ignite fitness programs. Marion Henson is with Bloom Healthy, and Bloom Healthy is this ever iterating organization, social venture committed to access to healthy natural foods, currently running pop-ups in the greater New Rochelle, New York area. So welcome, Marion and Jake.
Thank you.
Anything else you guys want to say about your two organizations that you've just started in the last year? Is there anything else people need to know about them before we dive in?
I'll let Marion jump on that one first.
Thanks, Jake. Anything, I would say that Bloom Healthy is forever trying to find the solutions to the challenges that people face with food and access. So we're open to the possibilities. We're open to the partnerships, working with various communities, this disabled community, the senior citizen community, children and families, because what we're finding in our work is that food stability or food insecurity has no real face. It has no real budget of income. Anyone at any point in time could be in that position of just needing access to really good food. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess I'd say piggybacking off of what Marion was saying, it sounds like she's very, mission based and mission focused, with an intentional purpose. At Breakthrough Fit Co. That was our same thing, was to just be mission based and try to go out and do some good in a crazy world. So
in a crazy world. So the three of us met in this crazy existential thing called the pandemic. So the full transparency of that is I was running a startup accelerator for Westchester County, and I met both Marion and Jake, and have been impacted by not only both of your missions and how you're aligned in terms of service, but also just the impact both of you have on other people. So I thought we'd have a fun conversation about starting things. So Marion, go first. Tell us, when did you get the idea for Bloom Healthy? And what were the circumstances that led to starting it?
I think that originally Bloom Healthy was kind of born like about 10 years ago, but really couldn't find its ground or its footing. I think that when you start a business, it's very difficult to imagine it actually starting and getting there. And then after having a small experience with food insecurity myself with my family, we were in a situation where we needed access to healthy food. Going through that experience and wondering how many families were actually going through that. They might have
And
been
what was your experience?
okay, so my husband basically went to work one day and came back without a job. He didn't have a job, and we found ourselves just in the weirdest position where we tried to apply for different things, but because we just fell within that income guideline, it just made too much. We really didn't qualify for many things. And being a working family, you think that when you have a crisis, there will be some type of help or assistance, and sometimes there just isn't anything that would help because of how much you might have made or what your living was like before. And because of that, it drove me to, when the launch program came up, it was actually funny because my sister sent me the link to the program, and she was like, "This is your time." And I was like, "No, it's not." It's not my time. And then I applied for the program and I realized, oh, this is about to get really heavy. It's about to really happen. Just realizing that as an entrepreneur, a lot of what we're doing, it's building a business, but it's working on your personal and your professional at the same time. You're really pulling parts of yourself.
So your idea, the pain in your life was like 10 years ago. And then the pandemic, you started because you got in a program?
So the pain was in 2007, so about 4 years ago, was the real pain of experiencing food insecurity. And then 2020 was when I was able to join the program.
Awesome. Jake, what were the
Mhm.
circumstances around starting Breakthrough Fit?
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, obviously the pandemic was the biggest one. Two key things in the backstory about being involved with the special needs community, and I'm always reminded of it when I go visit where I grew up, was driving to and from school as a little kid. There was always a gentleman that I knew had some form of a disability that would stand on the edge of the street and always wave, and I would always wave back, and every single day. And he just really made an impact on like the smallest thing, but every single day for years. Um, and even many years later, he's still out there, just waving at cars that pass by. Um, and then when I used to work in Manhattan, I inherited a special needs fitness program, and I just continued to learn and educate myself on working with that community. And in my travels throughout the fitness career, would always take on clients within that demographic. When the pandemic hit, working with the special needs community and the general population, I simply just found a way to move forward when everything shut down. I decided I wasn't going to. People still needed to move. They needed to take care of their health and their wellness, especially since we were in a crisis that was affecting people's health and wellness, and move. And then as things slowly started to ease up a little bit in terms of being able to meet up in parks or flipping my garage into a gym, I realized that there was more and more people out there requesting to work with their children or family members in that community. And then one day, my now business partner said, you know, I used to coach for the Special Olympics and I'm going to go back to it. And I think you need to get this out of your garage because there's a demand and a need for it, and do it. And I thought about it, and I woke up one day and I got hit with a ton of bricks. I said, this is a mission that I need to do. And it became just the focus, and we teamed up and never looked back.
So, what was the earliest recollection that both of you have growing up of starting something? Marion?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I was talking about this with a friend, and I remember when I was in middle school, I would pack my backpack full of like candy, chips, watermelon, anything I could find, and I would resell it back to all my peers in front of the girls' door. I would sell everything for 50 cents or 25 cents. And you could have snacks because we didn't have those vending machines inside that had all those things. So they could grab their snacks and have it in the morning or throughout the day at school. So that was my early recollections, actually doing what I'm doing now, but with healthy, with junk food back then, but with healthy food now. So that was the earliest one.
Jake?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I know one defining moment in my life where I had a full-on switch because I'm very anti-bullying and sticking up for people that others might not, just because it was something that I personally had experienced in high school. I wasn't in shape. I wasn't into fitness. And then in college, I was compared to Kevin James. I was in an acting program, and I was like, all right, I need to get myself in shape. And I just started. But by starting, I also forced myself to sign up for different races that scared me and that were challenging. And the biggest one I signed up for, I realized, was 13 miles in the woods, which to some people sounds like nothing. Some sounds like a tremendous amount. And I was just stuck by myself, only 5 miles in, ready to quit. And I looked back, and it was just trail and woods and mountain. And I looked forward, and it was just trails and woods and mountain. I'm like, you know what? It's me, God, and my faith. And the only option is forward. And from that moment on, I was like, I need to put myself in those positions where it's fight or flight, and you just have to move forward. And I remember the exact moment standing there, freaking out, and didn't have a choice except forward.
That's funny. I was a big runner for a long time, and I used to always say to myself, because I went through pregnancy too, and I said, if a pregnant woman can get out 5 miles and come back, you can run
Yep.
10 miles. You just got to
Oh,
get
yeah.
on the road and get out to 5 because you're going to have to get back.
Yep. Yep.
You bring up an interesting thing, Jake. So for both of you, what was growing up, what was the nature of spirituality, religion, or community? What was your experience and how has that impacted you now?
I would say it was a large part of like how I grew up. I remember my family heavily being involved in the church. So I am a pastor's kid. I was also a minister growing up. So I've preached and talked in front of audiences and motivated them. So I would say that it's a core of who I am spiritually. It's who I am. I don't recall a day that I don't say thank you, God, for waking up, or meditate, or say a prayer, or hold positive affirmations for others and for myself. I also operate from a place of grace because I know what it is like to go through a lot of things and not be understood. And so I would say it's a core of who I am, spirituality, and a lot of things that I hold true. And as I've grown up, I've developed my own sense of what spirituality looks like and what my own practices look like and what I want to instill in my children as they go forth too as well. So that's a lot for me. Is there's nothing that I do that doesn't include God and love. They're the core of who I am.
Jake?
I mean, I'm right in line with what she said. And the funny thing I always say, you know, throwing a little comedy in here, is that I'm Jewish, but I always tell people I'm Jew-ish, because I'm actually, no, because I would consider myself to be a non-denominational Christian or Messianic Jews. So my wife and I, go to a non-denominational church, and that when I found my own faith outside of my family, which was very big on bringing me up that way, and also family values were at the core of my entire upbringing. Um, a lot of different organized religion can sometimes, there's these rules and that rules. And when you go to something that's more non-denominational and just really focused on kind of what's in the Bible and you and your relationship with God, you realize that your mission is just to go out and be a light to the world. And when we opened up Breakthrough, I told my business partner, I was like, I want this place simply to be a lighthouse. I don't need to be out preaching to people about X, Y, and Z, because some people want to hear it, some people don't. But if you're simply good and a light to people, they'll get a glimpse into that realm, and that'll impact and plant the seed further than you know. So that's just like Marion said, it's the core of who she is. That's the core of me and why I do what I do.
Interesting. I didn't really know either of those things. I absolutely did not know you were a minister, Marion, and I had hinted at the Jewishness of you, but the experience of both of you is that you're very loving and you're kind of you're people magnets. People like being around you. And when I talk in the community, right, and would say something, oh yeah, Marion, Jake, you're always helping somebody else. So let's go back to starting something. When you think about where you're at now, what's most surprising about your startup journeys? Jake.
What's most surprising about the startup journey is nothing went the way you would have expected it to or as planned. But, and this kind of ties back to God, I mean, a big part of our startup plan was my dream space that I thought was going to be the perfect vision for where we're going to be located fell through right before we signed papers. Now my ideal timeline was going to be pushed off potentially by 6 months. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to pray about it. We're just going to move forward. And it's all going to work out the way it's supposed to work out. And we just move forward. Get a phone call like 3 days later from our commercial real estate agent. Hey, I got a space I want you guys to see. Buddy of mine owns it. Used to be a fitness facility, so you don't have to do a full construction build out. You could probably get in there as soon as July 1st. We went, and we were all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, right back on our ideal timeline to be open by Labor Day. And lo and behold, we opened the week after Labor Day. So I think the most surprising thing was manifest and put out there what you want, always work to it, knowing that things are going to get shaky and go wrong, but it could still land where you want it to.
From idea to where you are today, how long was that, Jake?
when we first decided to sit down and just put this to paper, and it was still under my personal training business name, was last January. By, I want to say, March, I was joining the launch program. And then we grand opened September 14th, and we're a week before Thanksgiving. So it's not even a full year. I'd say roughly 8 months from idea to paper to now.
Marion, most surprising part of your startup journey?
That a lot of it is about letting go of what your ideal plan is and staying open to the process and trusting it. I think the biggest thing for me is that I didn't realize that I was going to be able to do anything. I didn't think that anything would like materialize. And then realizing that what I spoke into existence was what became reality. So from the moment that I committed to what my idea was wholeheartedly, that's when things started to take action. So from having the idea in November, starting the program, to April saying, okay, am I ready? Is it time to launch? I'm getting the bug to launch. To, I think it was in the end of June, beginning of July, applying for Kiva and saying, oh, this might be a possibility. It's going to materialize. And then getting approved for Kiva and then saying, I got approved for Kiva and the loan came on July 7th and I did my first pop-up on July 14th. And that was a week of me now was in a place where I was being prepared the entire time for that pop-up. And then now realizing that it's all about the pivot. It's all about trusting. It's all about learning. It's all about keep going and testing, because you're going to get to what the plan is. It might not look like what you want, because sometimes what we want for ourselves is less than what God has for us. And sometimes he has something so great and so better. We just have to follow and trust this invisible timeline, right? Until we get there. So those were the biggest parts.
Talk to me about, in the program you were in, we use the test, iterate, de-risk things. Can you guys each give me like one or two examples, new ones, of how that process of de-risking and testing things helped accelerate your launch and reduced maybe not only the time but the money necessary? Jake?
Yeah, I mean, it can be an overwhelming concept, but it's also fairly simplistic. And I think it has to do with that whole concept of just start, because I just had a conversation with someone, just whatever your website is, put it out there and then get feedback from people, ask questions about it, right? The more you ask from your audience and from your client base, the more you're going to get that idea of what it is that the people want.
I agree with that.
Can you give me an example of how test and de-risking some in your journey, some specifics, so someone could kind of see how you used it to accelerate your timeline or reduce your cost of going to market?
Yeah. So with every person that we spoke to, we would ask them, like, what do you find to be the biggest struggle in keeping your child or your family member healthy and active? Or are there enough options out there? Or what are they currently doing? Those answers led into more in-depth questions. But I mean, in my situation, I realized there just wasn't a lot of stuff out there. And especially with the pandemic, it shut down a huge physical and social aspect of their lives. And they wanted their kids to do something, right? Then it got more specific in terms of just how much personalization each person wanted. And I actually even found out, like, I had this whole idea of this group class, but a lot of them want one-on-one training as well, because we were very specific on posture and corrective exercise as well. And some of my other clients have some pretty cool success stories that I've been working with for a while. So I actually was like, I got to find some people out there that could work one-on-one and group and really know the body. Because that was, I was just thinking, yeah, we could have 3 to 4 individuals in a class with 2 instructors. But we added a one-on-one component to pair with that, especially in the beginning before putting them into a class. So I just really found out that, you have to be open to hearing what people want, and, those are, I guess that's a kind of general example, but it was a similar and reoccurring conversation that was had.
That the
Yeah,
client, the client, the parents, they informed what service you brought and
yeah,
launched and offered.
yeah,
Marion?
I think is what's currently going on now with me. Like I'm finding that there are locations where my clients want to buy and purchase and then support people who are living in and around food deserts. And I'm finding that in and around food desert, there's the customers who need the food for free, but also need it subsidized and can pay something. So testing that and figuring out, okay, also what do they want to have? What are the items that are culturally appropriate? And asking, okay, what kind of foods do you want? Getting a lot of feedback, a lot of things that are coming back that are tropical. So I'm realizing that my audience also is from different islands in different countries, and they weren't finding those sources of items at, say, the pantry or the food bank because that's not what they get in. That's not what they look for to source. So just realizing that the more I talk to my customers, is the more that I see the need in different areas. And I thought that it was only in and around food deserts, but it's also in affluent neighborhoods who want to support communities that are in and around food deserts as well. So this realizing that there is a whole model that I didn't consider in locations that I didn't consider because I didn't think there was a need there, but realizing there is a need because they want to do good too as well.
So the hardest moment for you from idea to launch, can you tell us about the most difficult moment and really take us into it and how you got out? Jake?
yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to starting any business, funding can always be the hardest thing. I mean, there's always risk involved, and some people, when they're starting a business, have a lot of money to just throw into it, and some don't. Um, but if you come from the perspective of I'm going to find a way and a solution and not take no for an answer, and just however many people tell you no, keep going. Um, we knew what it would cost to get into our space, and we were actively looking for just an initial startup investment, which luckily ended up being the only thing that we had needed. So our initial startup and debt stayed very low. Um, but also going through, it was almost a blessing in disguise because what was the hardest thing, getting all the paperwork and ducks in a row for the committee to approve this funding loan. Because fun fact, if you're not a business for 2 years or more, you're not going to get funding from almost anywhere. But there are certain organizations out there. We partnered up with Community Capital here in Westchester that do help startups of under 2 years. And we just turned a year old. But it was a 3-month process of not knowing if that would come through while actively trying to look for a space. And if you're always moving forward in all departments, they magically aligned with each other. And we were initially told no because of a little hesitation in terms of our space, which had then fallen through. And then new space popped up. They were more comfortable with it. We needed to move. And we got on the phone. We're like, hey, we're at that make or break point, and we need to move forward, and we would love to do it with you. And then we get a message later saying, okay, cool. And I've never been more stressed out in my life. If I have a gray hair on my head, it was in that moment.
What was the loan that Community Partner made?
How much? Yep. So it was a $50,000 loan. We only used about $40,000 of it. We wanted to keep some as a contingency, which we haven't touched yet. But the cool thing is also is that the SBA paid the first 3 months installment payments for us. So we actually got $3,000 less that we didn't have to pay back.
Awesome. Marion.
It was initially finding a location. I didn't want to take on the cost of month-to-month lease and retail because with the pandemic and not knowing what was going on, I didn't want to be outside. I wanted an inside location because a part of what I'm trying to do is to make the access humane and very compassionate and a lot of empathy. And I think I could do that in an inside setting more than with an outside setting. So I was just like, where am I going to go? How am I going to get a space? I can't afford the space. And then after some conversations, I'm not quite sure how God made this happen, but I get an email and it's like every major developer in New Rochelle is in my inbox. And I'm like, okay, this is God, right? And I actually had
Well, and you reached out. I mean, you were like calling everyone. I mean, mayors, city, the person that started Trader Joe's. You left no rock unturned. So I would also say there was almost no one that didn't know about what you were doing.
Yeah, and that's kind of ringing true now. So like I'm just blessed because the space that I'm currently in was my first pop-up space. They've now agreed to let me use the space as long as I would like, just giving them the dates. I now have a space at Hutco in Dobbs Ferry, and there's a possibility that I would be there once a month for them, almost in residency with them. Um, so all these opportunities just presented themselves. Like one, like you said, it was no matter when the doubt came in, I still was speaking out loud that I have a place. This is going to happen. This is going to fall into line. Similarly, like I'm in a new program, a leadership program, and there was a fee left over. It was $1,500. And I was like, oh, okay, where am I going to get this $1,500? A scholarship popped up. And actually on Friday, I was just notified that I got the scholarship. So my fee for
That's
the
amazing.
program is now covered. But it was literally because I said, someone is going to give me this fee. It's going to happen. God is going to put the right person in line. And just like that, things started to fall into place for me.
Bias for action. You both have a bias for action. You take the step regardless if you see how it's going to happen. You take the next step believing that something's coming through versus sitting there planning it. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I got a thought on that. It actually came to mind right while Marion was talking, because something that she said, I think anyone starting a business or running a business should know is that it's generating relationships. She was calling people, making a connection and generating a relationship. You just said that her location is where her first pop-up was, right? There was a relationship that started. She didn't know down the road that it was going to be that. So moral of the story is, be kind to everyone, generate relationships, because there's a line in a song. I'm sorry, guys, it's a church song, but even when you don't see it, he's working, right?
Yeah.
When you plant those seeds, you don't know what's happening in the unseen, what other people might be doing on your behalf, or not knowing they're doing something on your behalf, but things are happening behind closed doors because you've planted those seeds, you've generated those relationships, and you've put yourself out there. So, and that's where our name Breakthrough came from, is hold on, breakthroughs coming. Is the difference between those who are successful and those aren't is they quit when it got hard, thinking there's nothing happening. But those that keep persisting achieve that breakthrough and start to see how it was a greater picture and things were all working together for something greater.
Yeah, I think this is really fascinating because when we run, my background is running programs to accelerate people, right? And so one of the pieces is community, and then out of community, relationships, strategic partners, accountability partners. Talk to me a little bit about how the community aspect, how community and relationships was a key part for, can you give us some examples of how that accelerated you moving from idea to actual launch?
Yeah, I think that it happened because the more you talk to people, the more you share what you're doing. And it was that give, ask rule that I personally still use it. So I realized, and I realized this last week, that I'm really good at connecting other people to other people because I listen to what other people are requesting, even when they're not requesting it. So if someone says they're working on something, I can automatically say, hey, in my mind, I have about 2 people that I need to introduce you to and to connect you with them. And I'm doing that not in intention with I don't expect anything in return. I do it because I know that that's what needs to be done in that moment to elevate or make that person move forward. And then when it comes back, I'm like, oh, okay, thank you, God. It came back, right? It's a blessing that comes back to you. But I think it's about understanding that there's so much in community that is love, that's growth, that's healing, that is strength, that is when you need someone and you're going through something, you can pick up the phone and call another launcher, call someone that you're attached to, a mentor, and say, hey, I'm having a rough day today, or I need this advice. And they're like, well, I got this advice for you because you've developed the relationship, because you've taken time out to get to know who they are, what they're working on, and what they need as well. So it's a relationship. It's learning how you communicate your style of love and professionalism, and how they communicate their style of professionalism and love. But I think love is in everything that we actually do, to be honest.
Jake?
Yeah. You know, I think with community, like I see people. That's why I say I don't care if you're a pro athlete, you've had a hip replacement, you had knee surgery, you have autism, you have Down syndrome, you have cerebral palsy, and are wheelchair bound. Everyone deserves the right to have quality of life, and you could achieve that through movement. And that's why we always say all are welcome. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what your opinions are. Like at the end of the day, we're all the same. All of our opinions are formulated through different socioeconomic and geographical upbringings, and we're all going through stuff. And at the baseline, everything that all of us as humans are going through really comes down to the same thing. It's wanting love, it's wanting support, or having a lack of, and which, yeah, so you still wanting it. That, I don't care who you are or what you think of yourself or who you want to fight. I mean, we're all going through something, and some people go through it at certain days or weeks or months, and when some people are in, and vice versa. And when you have community that's led by love and support, you're going to be there for somebody when they need you, and vice versa. Someone's going to be there for you, and you need them, and that's the beauty of community.
Some people think the word love doesn't belong in business or social ventures. Talk to me about what person, what experience in your life convinced you otherwise?
I mean, I saw a picture of a video at some conference I was at that stuck with me. That was a wolf breaking open a thing for water to drink it by himself, while all the cubs just sat, and when they went to go in, he just turned and growled at them. And then a lion in another video came, opened up the ice lake for water, stepped back, and let everyone run in and take it. And that was a leader working for his tribe, his clan, whatever you want to call it. And that was in tune with that seminar talking about a leader working for people as opposed to people working for you. And I think that changed my mentality to, like, you have to care about your team succeeding, your clients being happy, and just really loving on them. Because if you don't, and they're not happy, how do you have a successful business? How do you have people that want to come back? How do you have a staff that wants to show up and not work for you, but work with you to continue whatever the journey or the mission or the goal is?
I agree with that. I think my earliest example actually, I think, was watching my uncle. My uncle owned a store growing up, a convenience store, and I just remember him, no matter who came in, he would always treat everyone the same. And when a customer couldn't afford to pay, he would literally tell them to take their kids and keep it moving. So when they could come back and pay, they did come back and pay. And I saw him operate not for love, but with love. And so in my business, I do everything with love, not for love. Kind of like what you said with the leader. A leader doesn't just sit at the top or sit at a desk and hand out orders and have things done. That's a boss. A leader will go into the front of the pack, the middle of the pack, the end of the pack, wherever there needs to be some help or assistance, they're there to jump in. And that's the type of leader that I would like to be as I move forward. Someone who operates with love and compassion, and who understands that each team member has something that is great. Each team member has their challenges. How do you support them and help them elevate and live in that greatness, while helping them rise to the occasion on their challenges and meet those too as well? So.
Beautifully said.
When you're thinking about impact and service and designing your own best life, why was starting something a part of that?
Well, I guess I mean, look, the pandemic kind of shifted a lot of people's perspectives. For me, working in a corporate fitness setting, everyone's working for a title and not any greater pay except for doing more. And, it impacts your family life and your home life when you're constantly trying to do more to achieve the next title to potentially make a little bit more money. When you suddenly realize I could, it's a fear thing, right? Because just going out on your own in this big world is very scary. But you could do what you want with your mission that might, like, yeah, businesses have to make money, but if your focus is not fully just on, oh, I need to make money, but is on doing good and impacting, then everything else falls into place and follows. Um, so I think that answered the question.
I think for me, it was a little bit selfish for me. I saw everyone doing things. I saw supermarkets and stores doing things, but I didn't feel like it was the right thing. Like I didn't understand for the life of me why in a community a mom would be caught shoplifting and literally picking up food for her kids or diapers, and the cops would be called. I didn't get why that happened. To me, I just was like, okay, no, 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 no. A supermarket should have this in line so that everyone can shop no matter what happens. So I wanted to create what I didn't see that existed. I wanted to build something where people operated love. It was literally like you come in to my kitchen, you open the fridge, you grab food, and you walk home and you go prepare that food. It's everyone is supporting everyone in the community, and everyone eats. And if everyone's eating and supporting each other, then every other pillar of the community that needs to be improved upon is being improved upon because no one is struggling. There's not a scarcity mindset that's being kind of just running rampant. So I actually did it for a little bit of a selfish reason. I just didn't like what I was seeing, and I wanted to create something different.
Yeah.
And a quick piggyback on that is similarly, I think a lot of the corporate settings can be very expensive and very overstimulating for the special needs population. And seeing them outside of that setting, they flourish. And also, like I said, when it's not about just having a strict, expensive price point on top of already expensive memberships, that's not creating equal access to health and fitness for all. And we just wanted to, like you said, walk in, take food. We want people to come in, exercise. We can figure all that stuff out,
Well, both of you had really strong alignment with the problem you saw and your own personal goal of making an impact, and it was right in your sweet spot. When you talk to other people now, what's your advice in terms of how they use who they are, their sweet spot, to navigate to where they could have more success at starting something?
I think that when you're operating from a place of authenticity, everything you do shows up with love. It shows up with genuineness. And my advice would be I kind of do this self check-in with myself. When people are telling me things and people are making offers or things are coming along, I do this thing with, does it feel good? Is it right for what the business needs to do? Does this align with what my core values and principles are and what I see as the bigger picture for Bloom Healthy? And because of that, I say no now to certain things because they do not align. And those no's have opened up so many yeses that now I have to figure out which one of those yeses now need to be said no to, because not every yes you should fall into. So just staying open and being authentic to what aligns with you. Sometimes that gold or that quick dollar might seem very sparkly and shiny. And if you go after it, all your needs are going to be met, but you're going to be miserable with that partnership or that relationship. So really just evaluate as you're getting all these offers and partnerships and opportunities, make sure that it aligns to what you want to accomplish in your business, but who you are as a person too.
Before we go into Jake, how would you define your why?
How would I define my why? My why is to make everyone feel seen, loved, and heard while you're in my presence. And that I do that with food. Food is my love language and it's my medicine. So that is my why.
Jake?
I mean, just jumping straight to the why, it's to empower people to be the best versions of themselves and enhance their quality of lives through movement and a balanced, healthy lifestyle, be it someone with fitness goals or be it trainers wanting to grow as a fitness professional and impact people the way that we're trying to. And, you know, everything that Marion said was spot on. You know, I literally just had a conversation this morning about harnessing the power of no, especially because I'm a yes person. And I would imagine that Marion is too, as you're nodding. And I think it's important to say yes to anything and everyone and talk to everyone and take feedback and opinions, hear it, take from them all what you will, but also know when to say no and harness the power of no to make sure that it does align with you and your vision. Because at the end of the day, you did this because you had a clear cause and mission, which is what this was built upon. And it's like, you know, Simon Sinek says, start with why. It's not what you do, it's why you do it, right? And just channeling and streamlining that. So, yeah.
So I'm thinking about the iterations and the pivots you've made since you've launched. We say startup, right, is a temporary organization who is in search of a repeatable business or social model, right? You both started as startups. You're on your way to moving out of a startup into something else. What are you learning about pivoting, iterating, and you talked to us about yes and no, but what are you learning about pivoting, iterating, and being that part of the journey as a social change maker and entrepreneur?
Stay open to the flow of things. Don't be stubborn. Don't hold so tight to the dream that you don't understand that some of the steps might not look like you plan to, like Jake said earlier in the conversation. Some of the timeline and some of the steps are not going to look like what you think they're going to look like, but you're going to get to that vision and that dream. So when
Can you give me an example recently of how you pivoted or iterated?
Yeah, so I was stuck on being just in New Rochelle at that one location, and I couldn't see me trying any other location because I had some challenges with transportation. And I said, you know what? I don't really care about transportation. I'm going to try this yes in Dobbsbury, and it was one of the best experiences I had as a pop-up, just refreshing to understand, and it made me understand my model better and what I'm trying to accomplish and who I should go with to shop for this particular service that I'm offering, and who's going to support that service in the areas that need to be provided for the food.
So you had a vision of, okay, my channel is I'm in this one location, I'm doing this. And all of a sudden the market starts giving you this thing of, maybe you're not in one location. And maybe the business social model is different.
Yeah. And that opened up the possibility of now doing the holiday market at the train station. So if I stayed stuck on just being in that one location and saying I'm going to operate every Wednesday and Friday, and that's what it's going to be, you can't do that. So I pivoted and changed my days based on what was going on in the market. I realized that I should be there once a week, maybe twice a month in one location, once a month in one location, and just really test and try to see where my audience is and where my model will actually grow and flourish, right? Not being stuck to this notion of my success is only attached to this location and these group of people. No, my success is attached to the flow and me aligning to whatever is coming my way, you know, and not being so hardly stuck on, okay, you have to have this retail location and it has to be a permanent space. It doesn't, you know.
Jake, what's a recent iteration or pivot you're making?
Recent pivot. I mean, I think a recent pivot I'm making is the fact that we've, you know, kind of stopped focusing on certain ideas that we had in terms of, even though they're still there, virtual training or certain small group classes, because we see such a great growing demand for the special needs community and the one-on-one training that we decided we need to focus on building a community within our team and nurturing our 2 trainers to help them grow their books quickly so that they're comfortable. And we need to start hunting and putting our main priority focus on like the top ideal people that we would want to work with us with this special needs community for one-on-ones and for group, because the demand blew my business partner and I out of the water, that we took on a third person immediately who is literally sent by God. One of my clients, mom's like, you got to meet Doug. He called us. He said, this is what he wanted to do, open a gym for this exact reason. We did it. He wants in and wants to help us and eventually leave his job. So we made a pivot to really make that our main one and only focus. But also in terms of pivoting, you have to pivot to where you are being pulled to, even if it's not what you think. Who knows when the entire world is going to shut down again? Hopefully not in our lifetimes, but we just witnessed businesses thrive and succeed, and major companies completely fail because of who pivoted and who didn't during the pandemic. Granted, it was an unprecedented time. People twisted and adapted, and some didn't. So you have to pivot. You got to expect things to go wrong and expect things to never go, because then you won't be fully resistant to having to pivot when the time comes.
So mental health is it's on the top of everyone's mind, having lived through probably the biggest existential crisis of our lives. And Jake's a lot younger than me, but I think it's true for anyone alive right now. Talk to me about what you're doing to maintain what we would call whatever you think is balance, and what are some of the practices and what are you learning is either enhancing your mental health and your overall life quality, and what isn't?
So I think I just did this past weekend. Actually, I took a break. I put a away message on my email for the very first time in like 3 or 4 years. And I said, I'm not answering emails. I'm not reacting. I'm not responding this week. I'm going to kind of take the time out. And I honestly just listened to music and wrote and just relaxed. And it was the best thing ever, because when I came back today, the things that were overwhelming me, I flew through like that. And most of it's done, but it was causing me so much overwhelm because I was not allowing myself to rest. So for mental health, I would say that not everything could get accomplished in one day. Even the creator rested on the 7th day. So there's 6 days that you can work your butt off, but you have to find the time and opportunity to rest. You have to find the time to spend time with the people who bring you joy, who motivate you and uplift you. I have friends who send me positive affirmations every single day now. And they're actually launchers who I met through the program that we were a part of. And they've become my greatest accountability partners. And mental health reminders of we go out for dinner, we go out, we talk about the kids. So finding a network or group of people who you can actually just trust and talk to when you're having those difficulties, but then remembering to take the time out, because you're a human being and you need to rest. And the more rest that you actually get for your body and your mind is the more productive you can be when you want to hit a challenge or go through emails or read through emails, because that could be taxing mentally as well. So just take a break when you need to take a break, and realize that you don't have to get everything done, that it's a process. I heard someone say that it's a marathon, not a race. So pace yourself.
Jake, what isn't working for you? What hasn't worked for you? And what are you doing differently now?
What are we doing differently now? What hasn't worked? To say, because everything's just been this kind of forward trajectory, and I'm not gonna lie, a lot of stuff has just happened so fast in such a short period of time that it's been kind of system overloaded on a few occasions, and like
most
from servicing to people wanting to partner up, to people wanting a piece of the space, to people wanting to tell you should do this, or wanting to basically tell you how to run something because they have thoughts and ideas, like we were talking before, if it's not in line with what you have the vision, right? To people not respecting your time per se, but at the same time, people don't know how much or how little you have going on, right? So it's just setting boundaries, knowing when to put your phone on do not disturb.
What are you doing specifically?
Yeah, so by 8 o'clock, my phone goes on do not disturb. Only, well, my wife I'm normally with, but only my family can get through and my business partner when it's on do not disturb. And I might see messages, but I always tell people I'll get back within 24 to 48 hours, but I'll only answer between the hours of 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. I take a full day off on Sundays most of the time to just take a full day of rest. I intentionally make sure I get at least an hour of exercise in daily, and then make sure I wake up, just have some quiet time to just pray, gather my thoughts, because sometimes it's hard to when there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of very fast paced running around and trying to keep up with people. That you need that moment to step back and make sure that you're having clarity of thought. And you can easily get lost in the sauce, but at least if you know, like, I'm going to take this moment and just kind of breathe. I just said to someone that I just asked me to help them with something the other day. Always make sure you breathe. She asked me about time management. Just find time to breathe and to shut everything off and have quiet, even if it's a minute, and you need to just go into a room somewhere.
I love that tip, Jake, the breathing part. I think that I've put that into practice. I take 5 deep breaths and then I can respond to anything.
Yes.
I love that.
So, what are you most looking forward to in this next chapter of your venture? I know, Jake, you blew your goals out in your first month. You should probably share that. And then, what are you most looking forward to in this next season now that you're launched?
I guess what I'm most looking forward to is, I mean, everything month after month just builds and gets higher. Our baseline of, cost stays the same. And knowing, first off, that that's covered and then sustained over another month with a little bit more cushion allows me to see, this grander vision of, like, all right, once we hit January 1, I could start to now focus on hiring more people to work with the special needs community. We have a lot of group homes that have been wanting to come in during the day for a day program, and just really focus on nurturing the community that we already have. Like, yeah, you have to have client acquisition, but you also need retention. And, it's like what we were saying before, you want to make sure that your people, your clients, your team are happy. And I think what I'm most excited for is creating larger community events for the special needs community within Westchester. My grand vision is to take over the county center and throw the biggest yearly party for the special needs community ever. And it just means that we're one step closer to that without having to have the stress of, can we cover rent?
What has servicing the special needs taught you? What have you learned?
Well, first off, I've learned never stop working out, because it's a sprint and a marathon all at the same time, plus an obstacle course. But it is the most gratifying thing on the planet, because these individuals, and I just put a post up on Instagram about it today, are so unique and so talented and so strong, and the world needs to, I think, see more of that and become more used to that, because they are who they are. And I think the world, not all of the world, but a good chunk of the world just has this one perception. And I think we need to flip the world's perception. And the things that I see them do, and the successes and the smiles on their families' faces when they're doing things that they never thought their kids would do, when they're losing weight, when they're pulling back on some of their medications. I mean, that's why you do it. I mean, you're literally seeing lives change before your eyes, and all they have to give is love.
Marion?
Okay, can you repeat the question for me?
What are you
what Jake was saying, sorry.
What are you learning from your clients, and how are they changing you?
I'm learning how to listen a little bit more to things that they don't necessarily say, but their body language, right? I'm learning how to read their body language. I do have the opportunity to work in a community where there's so many different diverse household situations. And I do have clients that are experiencing some serious heavy things. So being a listening ear for them. I'm learning what fruits and vegetables and items that they need for their diets, what illnesses they're experiencing. I have clients who come in now for me who never ate mushrooms, who didn't like garlic or ginger. And now they're like, okay, Marion, give me another recipe. Teach me, because I started doing this and my body's feeling better. My mental health is feeling better. I'm not as sluggish as I was before. So I'm learning from them just the importance of having the support that they need when they're shopping, not just going in to go buy things, but how do I use these things? How are these beneficial for my health? How do I pair them? How can I make it quick and easy for my family? How can it be fun? Another thing that really surprised me is that I had a client who she came in and she gave me a gift, and it was like a card. It was a note card on there. And she actually put a Bible scripture on there that was like, God provides for those who provide for others, kind of thing. And was saying, thank you, Marion, because no one really sees the hard work you put into it. We just see your smile when you show up. And that made me realize that my smile is actually going a long way, and why most of the customers do come in and stop in and do come back and repeat. Because when they come in, they feel seen by me. So I've learned that throughout the process.
So now you guys spent some intensive time. We spent some intensive time together. I think of you as startup experts because we have all invested so many hours in you guys. So if you were advising somebody else that has been sitting around with an idea and they were going to start, what have become your basic, like 3 or 5 pieces of advice for anyone that is not started something but really wants to? Jake?
First off, get it on paper. Get it out of your head and onto paper, which I believe is one of the first things that you said, and kind of went in line with, I remember when my wife wanted to make vision boards of what our house would be and the things that we wanted, which it's crazy to think now that I think about it. We just recently bought a house. So everything on the vision board of starting a business and that has kind of come to fruition. But when you put it out on paper, it allows you to,
and then kind of plan your course of action to it. The other thing that I would say is another thing that I think we could all agree is pretty in tune with all of us is just start. There's never going to be the perfect time to start. You're always going to have an excuse to give yourself of why you can't start. Just shut up and start. Just do something. And then even if every day you only do one little thing to propel you forward, don't be the person that says, oh, well, it's not going to turn into anything. Because that was me back in January. And I'm sitting in my own gym having a conversation with Pam and Marion, with 2 people who just asked me to be their mentors. I'm like, I'm literally nobody. I'm just a guy with a mission trying to do something good, and just didn't take no for an answer and just started and just didn't stop. So just start.
Marion?
I love that, Jake. So I would say just start. Don't listen to the white noise on the outside. Sometimes when you're getting ready to start something, you're wondering what everybody else is going to think about what you're starting. It doesn't matter what they think. If you're given the dream and the vision, go for it. Surround yourself with people who have solid advice, people who are sober-minded and can provide wisdom along the way. Network, reach out. If there is someone doing something you want to do, connect with that person. Find out the things that they know, learn from them. That's one thing I learned when I did with Doug. And Doug has since recently told me to talk to him more often. So that is a blessing. And don't put limitations up. I mean, the only limitations we truly set are the ones that we make for ourselves. So just have this expectation in your mind that it's not about like the people used to say the stars are the limit. The sky's the limit. I don't think the sky's the limit because there's so much more beyond that. Dream big and dream as big as you want to, and then set in motion a plan to work towards that dream. Yeah.
All right, so you're putting up a billboard to the world that your business, your social venture, and your life resonates with. What's on the billboard?
Be the first you.
Oh man, so my billboard is very colorful. It has Bloom Healthy in the middle, and then it has a bunch of bright tropical fruits and vegetables, and just smiles. That's it. Like, just be healthy, bloom healthy. I just want the next generation to be healthier than we were, and not just healthier with food, but healthier in wellness, mindsets, spirituality, being deeper connected emotionally. So I think those bright, beautiful colors will actually activate the mental and emotional. So just bloom healthy.
I think
All
my
right.
billboard might say "Bloom to your breakthrough."
Your combined, that's your combined billboard. All right. So, Marion, we find you with what's your handle across social and your website?
So it's the website is www.bloomhealthy.org. It's bloomhealthy.org on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
All right. And Jake, we find you.
Yep, it's breakthroughfitco.com and Instagram and Facebook, Breakthrough Fitco. Pretty simple.
Well, thanks for taking this time today with me, sharing your start something journeys and just the wisdom you have. You are beams of love and action, love in action. And I can't wait to see how these new ventures just escalate, accelerate, and impact. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
You as well.